All right, welcome guys to this live video presentation of May 2021. I'm your astrologer, Christian Klausner, and I'm here with...
Hello, I'm A Rose Mapstone. So glad to be here.
We are stoked. We're so happy to be doing this for you guys every month. Soon these will be added to my podcast when I get a podcast going. But hopefully
Woo!
audio and video is all good for you guys. We're going to try and blast through this and keep this at an hour's length. We'll see how we do. But before I get into the presentation, I just want to say, and it looks like we got disconnected there for a minute. Interesting. That's never happened. But we're back. It's been like Mercury's retrograde, but it's not. I've been having such weird things happen like that. Anyways,
Like a
I
ghost retrograde.
right. That's totally how it feels. I think Mercury is just fed up with being in a place that it doesn't like to be in. But the good news is it's going to go into its home in Gemini. Finally, Mercury is going to get some relief. And not just relief, it's going to get pumped up. It's going to start feeling really good, which is going to be really good for our minds and for communicating. And like Amelia said earlier, it's going to be like fresh oxygen. But we'll get into that. I just want to say May 2021 only happens one time. We only get one shot at this. And if you think about this, every single moment happens once to never return. It never repeats. So if we can remember this, even in those moments where we want to escape or moments where we're not feeling so comfortable, if you'll just remember that this is a gift that you get one time, and it's really truly special in that way, then you can kind of get through anything. I mean, every moment is such an amazing, pure gift, and you'll never get it again. And the illusion of consciousness is that it kind of, in a weird way, it makes it seem like this moment will always be here, because the moment is always a moment. It's one, it's in unity. But so it's easy to forget in the illusion of consciousness that you're never gonna get this experience again. So I hope I just want to portray some of the specialness, of not only this month ahead of us, but this moment here now, and just what it means to be alive. It's an amazing thing. So thank you guys for being alive here on Earth with me. I want to bless all of you. May the spirit of this universe bless us all and guide us as we learn this language of astrology and try and figure out what God is trying to tell us about his amazing solar system and life on this planet. So, shall we jump into it?
Aho, heck yeah.
Aho, here we go, May 2021. So this is our show, Star Logic. It's been renamed. It's a name I've been wanting to work with for a while. Star Logic, unveiling the logic of the stars, your astrological breakdown for May of 2021. And it's in green because it's an earthy time. 20 days of May is spent in Taurus, with the sun in Taurus. So that's an earth sign. So we got the green colors going on. As you all know, the zodiac is a perfect representation of the complete energy of our entire body, from Aries in the head down to Pisces in the feet. And esoteric literature calls it the grand man of the heavens. So as above, so below. So there's this grand man in the heavens, and then there's this little man on earth called us, human beings. And we're a reflection of that. As we get to know the universe, we get to know ourselves. And the quote for this month is, growth begins when we begin to accept our own weakness. I chose that quote to, characterize this time because there's this humility and this grace that comes with Taurus, the sign of the bull. It's ruled by Venus, which is the planet of grace and love and symmetry. And Taurus has a way of smoothing out the rough edges of Aries, where we rush out and try and meet the world full force in Aries. Taurus slows things down a bit and it creates this steadiness. And in that steadiness, you can find out where you can improve upon yourself. And in order to improve, you kind of have to embrace your weakness. So in Aries, there's this rash kind of running over where the weaknesses are, because Aries wants to be strong. And so it'll tend to overlook weakness just in that energy. Taurus is where you slow down and hopefully have the grace and the compassion for yourself to say, okay, this is where I'm weak. This is where I could use some work. And growth begins when we begin to accept our own weakness, not run from it. And there's a scripture that I love. It's that, in our weakness, he is strong. And that means that as you become humble in personality, the strength of your soul can come through. So I want people to have a new idea about their weakness. I want you to see that your weakness is a blessing. And when you be grateful for your weakness, that's when you can begin to grow and create strength out of that weakness. So be grateful for where you're weak, you guys. And this is not an anti-strength, anti-masculine. It's not any of that. It's tapping into where many of us are too afraid to look. It's that in our weakness, that's where the divine can function through you. And when you have gratitude for your weakness, like, thank you, God, for this weakness, then you can begin to shift perspectives around weakness, and everything can change from there. So it's just a strategy or an approach that many of us don't even think of taking in life. I never thought of doing this until I was uh, born again. And I began to look at my weaknesses not as something to judge or to hate, but as something to accept and be actually super stoked about. Like, thank you for my weakness, because it's an amazing thing. So, Amelia, would you like to take the reins from here on out and kind of guide us through, just, get us going on this track of the transits?
Sure, of course. Also, thank you for that opening, because that was just so beautifully put and eloquent. So thank you.
Thank you.
Um, So yeah, at the start of May, I mentioned this earlier before we started recording, but I labeled these sections with little keywords. So the first one is humble ego, empowered soul. And this is speaking to this emotional, this spiritual thread that the moon brings within us. I was saying earlier, when in doubt, look to the moon. So we know that it can get a little bit hectic and chaotic with following all of the transits of the planets. But the beauty of the moon is it's sort of like this emotional magnetic compass for us to look towards, that sort of filters all of these planetary energies through while she is going through her own cycles, so intimately and closely to us. So Pluto and Capricorn, though, and the trines that are going on with them are definitely speaking to that humble ego. So I always describe Pluto as the shadow of humanity, this sort of, just so you were talking about, Christian, of like revealing your weaknesses, which can be really hard and painful and embarrassing, and vulnerable. But it's in those moments of power, or I should say it's in those moments of weakness where we find our true power, because power isn't in, control or in bullishness or trying to, take something or push something onto someone else. They're in those moments of surrender to the soul, to God's will, essentially. And so with all of that at the beginning of this, as the moon continues to move through from Pisces and Aries and then Taurus, there's this like rebirth moment happening in our emotions. We're allowing ourselves to emotionally understand and get more intimate with this idea of Pluto, right? And Mercury trining Pluto specifically speaks to that rising to the consciousness to me. These shadow selves, or these parts of us that we have hidden for so long, are really coming to the forefront so that we can work with them and that we can create stability and strength from them rather than like sweeping them under the rug consistently. And it's probably really going to pack a punch, I think, with all of this energy. Especially so the moon will be in Aquarius at that time as well. So there's this sense of like, when you do this work, even though it might feel very personal and very intimate, and I think I might have said this last month as well, you're benefiting the collective, you're benefiting humanity. So you working on yourself is still humanitarian work, because that's where it all starts. It all starts from within. And that's one of the most important and empowering messages that astrology and God has for us, is that, you're the seed of life, essentially. You start within and it moves without. And then can you only imagine like how much more you can help other people and expand outwards, which is what we'll be talking about later in the month as well, with that, bolstering strength there, which is very Taurus. It's building that foundation. And with Venus and Taurus as well, like or drawing in this sense of building a foundation, a nourishing place for you to stand on and bury your roots. So yeah, that's my take on this generally. If you have anything to add, Christian, go right ahead.
Nice. That is deep. Um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, there's this ease. Here, let me go back to the
Mm.
beginning of the month. This ease between Mercury and Pluto, which is amazing. So anytime we have a trine, it relates to easy energy. There's some ease of access happening. There's agreement between two planets. And in this case, May 1st, we start to feel it between Mercury in Taurus and at 26 degrees, the last degrees of Taurus, trine Pluto at 26. So it's exact on the 1st. And this ease of access is like this easy way of, Mercury is conscious awareness and it deals with the conscious, logical, analytical mind. Pluto is the depth, the shadow of humanity. And Pluto does relate to a lot of repression and other things that get repressed and pushed down. And when I always say, whenever anything in your psyche is in the shadows, that's where it can control you from. So when you bring it to light, then you can see what's going on and then you can overcome it. You're not controlled by it. So this is definitely, the month starts out with you being able to get to know yourself. And, in the earthy elements between Mercury and Pluto, this could look like really getting into like muscular tension, like things in your body that communicate that there's distress going on. So muscular holding patterns, which communicate, you know, that you're withdrawn or, not comfortable with life. So the beginning of May is an amazing earthy time, and the earth element relates to the physical body. It's a time to open up your physical body, to spread your chest wide, put your shoulders back, get the posture that you want, start doing yoga. The early part of May is an amazing way to transform yourself through the introduction of new habits like this. And being in an earthy time with all this earth energy in the zodiac, I highly recommend, especially with the moon will be with Pluto. I recommend you do some physical activity that will get you into this reprogrammed mode of empowerment rather than depowerment, or disempowerment rather. I'm just going to make up words today. Um, that's not a word, is it? Depowerment? No, that's not a word. That can't be a
No,
word.
it's disempowerment. But honestly, like if you're translating the stars, sometimes you got to make up words. So it's okay.
Sometimes. Yeah. So, and Pluto relates to transformation. And so you can totally transform your psyche by, doing these new bodily practices.
I love
So
that.
yeah, then the moon comes into Aquarius, giving some insight. We have Venus sextile Neptune and Pisces, a positive aspect. Mercury in Taurus is then going to square Jupiter while the sun squares Saturn. And at that moment, May 3rd, Mercury enters Gemini. So this is one of the biggest transits of the month. On the 3rd of May, Mercury is going to enter Gemini, where it'll be for, I don't know how long. I should probably write down the length of these transits. Let's see how long. I'll make a little mental note to include that for next time, for your guys' notes. So Mercury is going to go retrograde here in Gemini. When is that happening? Let's see. Whenever it turns red there.
Mercury retrograde in Gemini is an interesting thing because I feel like for me that tends to expedite all processes. Like it makes it so obvious what needs to be dealt with, that you've been like not paying attention to. It really just brings it there. And with Pluto involved at the beginning of the month too, like I'm starting to think now, I'm like, ooh, what's gonna come up? Because I've already had so much come up this month. Then I'm like, what's gonna come up in May that's just like, you can't ignore this anymore, you know?
Totally. I love how you said that too. Humble ego, empowered soul. This is definitely an easy time to crush your ego, especially if you'll work with it. If you resist it and you try and keep your ego looking good and all that, that'll probably just add to tension in the body, and it'll probably not be the best, because it's more of a time of empowering the soul, like as you said. So
You
May
know what
3rd.
I've been saying?
Hmm.
Um, I've been saying that, I'm giving my soul the driver's seat, the driver's seat and the keys, and then the ego is going in a baby car seat in the back because she needs to chill out. You know what I mean? Like I'm just giving, you got to treat your ego like a kid sometimes with like the same amount of love and comfort, but also discipline and like regiment, of like, okay, this
Mhm.
is how it's going to be and this is where we're going. And, you can't let your ego be the autopilot because that's when things get, reactionary and volatile and dramatic and it's just very unnecessary. So I've been like, all right, soul, you got the keys. We're putting this one in the back. Like
Yeah, totally agree. Because the ego has those programs that are just those knee-jerk reactions in life. So as soon as
Mhm,
somebody says something about you, and you go, "That's not true," blah blah blah, you start defending yourself. That's the ego. What kind of
mhm.
short circuits that whole process is awareness, which comes from God. It's thanks to God that we can be aware of ourselves, and that's the transcendent part. That's the transcendence. When you're self-aware, you're aware of your reactions, then you have access to like a moment in between moments where you really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's almost like you can pause time in a way. It's really truly magical, and I'm really am trying to make it sound supernatural. And you guys, you, you got to meditate because you know the scriptures say to pray without ceasing, and how we do that is we meditate, first thing in the morning and last thing at night. And if you just do that even 5 minutes every day, then you'll have access to this awareness. And the awareness is going to be huge as Mercury comes into Gemini on the 3rd. And we also have Saturn, yeah, Sun and Saturn in square. And I'd love to hear what Amelia has to say about that. She said something interesting, how it relates to daddy issue healing, which is very
Yes.
interesting. Um,
It is for sure. I was saying that our sun, our sun is that father life force energy. It's that image of God. Um, and Saturn is also, the father of the zodiac in many ways, that father deity energy. So it's just this divine masculine puddle for healing, in my opinion, which is much needed right now, especially with like Gemini energy being involved. All this air is like that, like I said, that super saturated oxygen moment of just like a deep inhale, but then also this big exhale and release, rebalancing, recalibrating. But pertaining to the issues, yes, like the divine masculine healing is coming in there, which I think is really important because which we were kind of talking about this before we started recording, but it's so easy to like get into those habits of like the isms that we were talking about, like sexism, for example, where it's like you notice the imbalance of the energies, but you're like blaming it on the surface level, like what you see of like, oh, girl versus boy. But it's not about like your sex, it's about your energies within you and the polarization of them. And it really has nothing to do with like, what parts you have or who you identify as even. It's everything to do with the energies. So I think that
mhm.
this is a really great opportunity to be like staring straight at it. It's that yang energy of that light, like shedding a whole lot of light on what needs to be seen. And that's the real true essence of the divine masculine, is shedding the light so that everything can be seen. So very, very big and very possibly, pertaining to some actual personal daddy issues, but I think also our collective daddy issues that like even are somewhat our like secular society has daddy issues in the sense that we've forgotten God, we've forgotten even Mother Earth. So we've got mommy and daddy issues up in here. And so coming back
Mhm.
to the spirit, the Holy Spirit and God is like the ultimate healing of that, because you're, as you say, you're forgiving the divine parents, which I love that. So this is a huge opportunity for that right now.
Oh man, absolutely. Our earthly creators are the bridge to our heavenly creators. And the
Mm,
bridge, the bridge is formed through love. So if you can love your earthly parents, which just means don't hate them, it just means don't hate them. When you don't hate, you automatically have love. You got to get rid of the hate first. So don't judge them because they were guaranteed they were not perfect. And then by having grace in your own soul, being able to love them, which is to not hate them, then you can be carried to learn to what it is to love your creators in heaven, which you have not seen. But how can you love your creators in heaven who you've not seen when you hate the ones you have seen? So that's that bridge
Mm.
there. And May 1st through the 5th is a wonderful time for healing this kind of stuff and bringing in a new awareness. Um, Sun square Saturn, which hits exact on the 3rd, the day Mercury comes into Gemini, is like, where is your life force being blocked by these mental ideas, these Aquarius, Saturn and Aquarius constructs that you have? And where is it limiting your ability to have energy, to have life, to have that exuberance of the sun in Taurus, which is this organic bodily vitality to to grow good things in your life. And we can't grow anything good without that energy. And so sexism, for example, we live in a culture where we name symptoms and then we base everything off of the symptoms. So like we have disease consciousness. So we name all these different diseases. Well, all disease has one source. And I don't know why we're not talking about the one underlying the many, which is the fact that the body is not detoxing. It's a sick body. Um, Same with sexism. It's hate. It has nothing to do with sex. Let's say a man hates women. The, he, it's not, women aren't his problem. His problem is the hate in his heart. I could rap about this all day, but it has to, I don't know why we don't deal with the core issue. So then we label it sexism and now we're confused and we're diverted off the real path of what's really going on, which is that this person doesn't have love. He has hate. And so as soon as the hate is taken care of, then love can come in and make a home inside of you. So we live in a society where words are very distracting because of how we label things. And this is early May to the 5th. On the 5th, we have Venus then come into a sextile with Pluto at the same time that this square is coming off of the sun and Saturn. And this is some grace coming in, and this is the goddess Venus in Taurus, where she loves to be, working with Pluto in Capricorn, which is our deep repressions and maybe shadows that we have around society, around the world, and around control and governments. And this is also looking at issues that we have with authority. And where did we learn these issues with authority? Where, what do we have respect for, and how can we magnify that respect so that we have more life? So I think that this sextile trine between Venus and Pluto is going to be extremely powerful. And if you'll kind of wrestle on the 3rd and 4th with this Sun square Saturn, with this this confrontation as to what is hindering or limiting your life force, and just find out if there's, any new areas where you can introduce love and see what the underlying causes are of these restrictions to your life, then you'll be rewarded on the 5th, I think, as Venus comes into a positive alignment with Pluto, allowing you to transform how you interact with others, how you relate to others, and, just transform the way in which you give love, I think. So I don't know. We'll see. And what are your thoughts about now May 6th through the 10th?
Let me see. Can you go back to the other slide? And you have a moment.
Oh, yeah. So,
I should honestly have it open on my own, but alas.
oh, that's okay. No
The
problem.
6th or the 10th. Right. Okay, so this is where that, for me, the emotional rebirth that I mentioned earlier comes in because of the moon entering Aries and then moving into Taurus, which is like an interesting little, more intimate echo, I think, of what's been going on with our sun, right? Since moving from Aries into Taurus. And then Venus in Taurus, right? You mentioned that. Oh, and then squaring Jupiter in Aquarius. that's that expansion of love that you were just talking about where you can bring more love to your life. I mean, I was saying earlier, like, expand your love languages. I was actually just telling someone today that I'm one of my goals for May actually is to like master all the love languages, or at least start, the mastery, start the learning process of these love languages. And I think that's a really good way to put that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Venus coming into a square with Jupiter on May 8th, 7th and 8th, just before coming into Gemini on the 8th, is going to be
Mm.
incredible. So this is Venus getting challenged with Jupiter to expand, to grow, and putting
Yeah, it's
into,
not going to be easy. I don't think,
no, I don't think so. It's going
but
to
it'll
be
be incredibly worth it.
definitely. Venus square Jupiter is, this is a challenge now at this point of the month, but the reward will be so great. And the challenge won't be too hard. It'll deal with maybe relationship stuff. And so it's a wonderful time to challenge yourself. If people are ticking you off in the wrong way, or whatever's going on in relationships for you in life at this point in time, May 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, look at how you can adjust. Like Amelia was saying, your love languages. This is about adjusting and finding perspective, especially with Jupiter at the last degree of Aquarius. This is like the last little moment that we get before Jupiter enters Pisces and Venus enters Gemini, which is heavy mutable energy. This is that last little fixed square between Venus and Jupiter where you can tie in loose ends and find out what is most worthwhile for you to invest some energies and do some adjustments. And it'll have to do likely with perspective around relationships, perspective around expression and language. And I would say, I would always say with the Venus squared Jupiter in Taurus and Aquarius, find out, you know, I would just say, like, let people be wrong about you. That's one thing, because people may have
Mm.
judgments about you. Just let them be wrong. Realize that they have no idea what's going on for you. And similarly, you have no idea what's going on for them. And that respect of the unknown, like you're only in your own head, you are not in anybody else's head, can allow you to have the peace of realizing when people are overstepping boundaries, making assumptions that are clearly wrong, and just give them the license to do that. And that'll give you the freedom to just let it roll off of you, is what I would say. Because this is an expansion of your heart for sure around May 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then May 8th, Venus comes into Gemini and joins Mercury there. And Venus in Gemini is all about love language. It's about the communication of love. Venus has a lot of fun in Gemini, but here it's like a little more of friendly energy. Intimacy will probably be found more through mental stimulation and getting to know people at a level of conversation and the intellect. Um, and what do you have to say about Venus coming into Gemini of this month?
I don't know if I have anything to add. I think you said it perfectly.
Okay. So yeah, this once the 8th rolls around for May, this is a wonderful time for socializing, communicating, meeting new people, especially in your local area. And this is just going to be energy which can totally tie the community together. So once the 8th rolls around and we come out of that Venus square Jupiter, now it's going to be easy productivity in your community. It'll be an amazing time to get out and get involved. Um, Maybe join your city council or do something, because this is going to be very purposeful Gemini energy with the North Node here. The North Node comes into the last decan of Gemini at this time in May. So the North Node is at the 10 degrees Gemini. It's in the last 10 degrees. It's the first 10 degrees, but the North Node moves backwards. So the North Node is spending its last 10 degrees in Gemini before moving into Taurus. And so it's a pivotal time for purposeful community involvement. I highly recommend you get involved. It's just going to feel so easy around this time of May to communicate with people, especially if it's geared around purpose, like, and constructive outlets for creative energy. So It's going to be really fun once, May 8th and hereafter. It's going to be a blast. All right. So May 10th is when, so May 9th, the moon comes into Taurus, amazingly solid energy. I've always noticed that whenever the moon is in Taurus, I have a very easy time finding lost items. I think that the moon being exalted in Taurus in astrology relates to the fact that, the moon magnetizes things and it's the attractor. And when in Taurus, it's solid. It's easy to attract to you those physical things and even those emotions and things like that that you want to experience. So moon in Taurus on the 9th, amazing time to find lost items, and to attract things to yourself. And then May 10th, Mercury conjuncts the North Node in Gemini. So this is a conscious realization about what humanity needs now in May 2021. What does humanity need in order to grow and evolve? I've always said this whole time the North Node's been in Gemini, it's about research. It's about finding out what the sources are for the information you're getting. It's about not just going with what the crowd is saying is right, but really doing some hard investigation and keeping that curiosity with you to make it light, fun, and just a happy search. And you have to keep that with yourself because the temptation is so great now with the South Node in Sagittarius, which, Jupiter rules Sag and it's an Aquarius. So this is heavy herd energy. This is just like, what are you doing? Just go with what everybody is saying. Why are you being such a thorn in our side? This is making you feel like bad because you want to find out for yourself. Don't fall for that. Do not fall for that. On the 10th, Mercury is bringing some ideas to light. And this can be pretty jarring for those who've been more on the South Node side of just going with the crowd. The 10th is where people are going to see some things that maybe they didn't want to see. But if you always are wanting truth, you're going to be happy to see it. So there's some truth hitting us on May 10th. And then Venus is going to shortly follow, and she will also conjunct the North Node, which will be amazing. And we'll talk about that when we get there. So now May 11th through the 20th, let's work on this section of the month. And Amelia's keywords are innate worthiness, which is so perfect. Do you want to explain why that's perfect?
Of course. Should we just dive into the new moon pages? Because that's kind of where I got it from, is just this set of you were born worthy and you kind of forgot about that. And that's where a lot of like hate and hurt comes from, I think, is just this this feeling of giving up your power, even though you can't even really give up your power because you're made of it, in essence. So we're remembering, right? The beginning of this month is spent sort of being humbled, but at the same time being empowered. And through this paradox, we find our true power, which is just the fact that we were born, being present on this planet is like a huge power move. And so you sort of like give yourself a pat on the back while also sitting yourself down and being like, hey friend, like chill out a little. So it felt very lighthearted to me. This new moon in Taurus is going to be a good time to reconnect with your innate worth, the worth that you were born with. It's the fact that you were born that means you are worthy. So that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the heart of the wisdom that lies, in the heart of every child, is this
Mm,
ability to sense that I exist. So on some level, at least, I'm worthy.
hmm
And that's the amazing beauty of the innocence that all children have. And when you know that you have value because you exist, you're in alignment with the universe, because the universe created you. And so you just know that the universe needs you for a reason.
mm.
And when you have that sense of worthiness or that value that you have intrinsically, then it's easy to contribute. It's easy to give that value. You don't really hold back your gifts so much. And new moon in Taurus is amazing because the moon is exalted in Taurus. And so it comes together with the sun in order to create a new moon. And this is a time where, the moon has a lot of support being in Taurus as she resets or renews herself. So it's an amazing, amazing time to renew that innate sense of worthiness that you had as a child. You just have to remember it. So you don't need to learn worthiness. You need to remember it because you had it at one time and you still have it. You just have to remember it. Um, and so this new moon in Taurus is incredible. And before I read the new moon intention, let us look at the transits for this new moon. So it'll be on the 11th, probably around, let's see, let's get exact for the peoples. Let's see when it exactly is. New moon hits exact on 11:52 a.m. Pacific time, California time in the US. And so right around noon is when it's exactly going to hit. And looking at the angles to this new moon, what was that?
I was just saying that's pretty auspicious. The
Auspicious.
timing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
Opportune.
Yeah. It's very, very close sextile to Neptune, only 1 degree off. So this is a very
Oh wow,
imaginative
yeah.
new moon. Lots of imagination and magic happening. I would say it's a time to magically remember the value you have as a person, the value that you have as a soul. And that's the only aspect that I really see to this new moon, this big old sextile to Neptune. So these Neptunian energies, these Pisces energies, working to vitalize and really make stick this new sense of worthiness or value. So the water element in astrology is the glue. It helps things stick. It gives experiences meaning. It allows, and memory is based on emotion. So when you know, a movie that hits you really emotionally is a movie you're always going to remember. So this can be a new moon to remember for a long, 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 long time, where you set your intentions. And even if you don't consciously remember when you set those intentions on May 11th, 2021, the new moon in Taurus, your soul will remember it and you'll see the evidence of this worthiness or this value come forth throughout the rest of the month and maybe the rest of the year and maybe the rest of your life. So I would hold an
Mm.
image in your mind if you can on this new moon, an image that, you know, even if it's just like a still lake or a mountain or, just any kind of image you can hold in your mind that makes you feel serene and peaceful and that you belong. Um, Hold that image in your mind and let those feelings sink in and do some visualization and then be still on this new moon. Amazing time to be still and meditate and fast if you want to. But yeah, it's going to be an awesome new moon. And of course, with the ruler Venus, the ruler of Taurus in Gemini, maybe come up with some phrases that help you verbalize or give language to the, again, this value or this self-worth that you'd like to cultivate.
Mm.
Awesome.
I'd like to mention too, perfect time for manifestation, because when you remember, your innate value and worthiness, and this makes so much more sense as to this intention that you wrote. It was beautiful. That's when you start to attract things to yourself, that which is in alignment with your soul and within God's will, and that which you're creating as well. So there's this beautiful mutual attraction and creation happening here. You're basically like, you have this great opportunity to sign a new contract with the universe, of co-creation, rather than like the victim mindset or feeling unworthy or whatever opposes this new co-creation. So this is super exciting, and I'm getting really excited just talking about it.
Yeah, that is deep. You hit it on the head. Let go of victimhood and any,
Hmm.
or blame or shame, and step into this co-creation with God, because God does have your back. He wants the best for you, better than you can ever imagine. And if you just work with him, work with that spirit that's beating your heart, work with the divine and co-create with them, and you can do anything. It's totally a powerful time for that. to realize that the universe does have your back. It is on your side. And, just let go of I can't. It's a time to step into I can, what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I'll read this new moon intention. From now on, I will see that every created thing is either pulled to me or repelled from me according to my inner states, my thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, and opinions. And what this does is it cements in the realization that you're responsible. And you can't have empowerment without taking responsibility. So they go hand in hand. So it's a time to see that everything you see on the outside is repelled or attracted according to your inner state. Hence, my work is to be done inwardly so that I am developing the right qualities of character that will make me align effortlessly with the things, people, and situations that conspire to help me lead a life of joy, love, and abundance. My example of a happy life is the best way that I can help others, being an example of happiness. Thus, it is God's will that I should become as joyous and prosperous as possible. Knowing this, I go forth in full faith that I can have what I want. I intend to have it. I will have it. I give thanks to the Creator in my heart, who guides me in every way and shapes me into my true identity. And I want to remind everybody, we don't do this. We can't change ourselves. Of ourselves, we can do nothing, and of ourselves, we know nothing. But through Him who lives in us, all things are possible. And that's that divine humility, which I think is the grace of Taurus, that love of Venus, which is that you realize you don't shape yourself into your true identity. That's what God is for, and God is that awareness within you. And just by being aware, it happens. It happens just like that. But the ego wants you to think that you're doing it, that you're in control. And when you start living life from that way, you get crushed. You eventually crash and burn. So amazing.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, cool. So that's the new moon in Taurus. Here we have an earth meditation. Ooh, yes. Would you like to read this for us?
Of course. This is kind of along the lines of what we've already been talking about, but I think it's a good, reminder to just center into your space and be present. So take a deep breath and another, an inhale, exhale, continual participation in that equal energy exchange. Be aware that you are speaking with the trees just by breathing, and they respond lovingly with the exact answers and nourishment you need. Kiss the ground with bare toes. Your roots are friends. Lie in the grass and let it tickle your spine. Free your nervous system of misfirings. And that is very fitting for what you said earlier, Christian, about, when we have tension, Taurus will make it known very bodily, right? There's going to be tension, or even inflammation is sort of that Taurus and Scorpio, is it the parasympathetic nervous system? The part that can get a little too carried away. So open that great gooey channel of communion between you and Mama Gaia, you and Mother Earth, this Mother Matter who was inhabited by divine light, who birthed you and all this other wonderful stuff. Know that you deserve to take up space, and that every space is sacred because you are in it. And you are spirit inhabiting earthly matter, and therefore you are unconditionally loved and cherished by your divine parents. Give thanks here and now. And I want to speak to earlier to what Christian said about the divine parents, and how your earthly parents are the bridge to that. It's important. Part of walking across that bridge is recognizing that your parents, biologically, they are also children of God. They're children of earth as well. So that is why they're not perfect. Your divine parents are perfect. And so it's this interesting bridge to cross of, again, humbling the ego and empowering the soul, because your soul knows perfection, but your ego is convinced that it does, but it doesn't. It mistakes perfection in the tangible and in the temporal. So we see through this Maya, and walking through this bridge of forgiveness, towards the divine parents, towards God, is it's very powerful. So, and then I just added a little note. Feel free to rearrange your physical spaces during this time. I always like to do that. And as Christian mentioned earlier, moving your body, moving the environment around you, just getting more comfortable with the environment around you. If it's not something you're used to, time to, do it. If you're getting too complacent, perhaps, in the environment, switch it up a little. Cleaning up trash or tending to gardens is also a great idea, in my opinion. And that relates back to what you said, Christian, about contributing to humanity. Like, you can clean up trash with other people. That's one of my favorite community service things, actually, because you can just chat up a storm with some people on the street while you're cleaning it up. And it's just so fun, because you'd be surprised what kind of funny topics come up while you're, like, finding other people's trash. So, like, get creative, because you still have this Gemini energy coming in full blazing with all these other planets there. So this new moon in Taurus is just very harmonious and very beautiful. And
Yes.
yeah, that's my recommendation, my little seed of 2 cents.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And I just noticed we got a few other participants in here. That is amazing.
Yay! Welcome, welcome,
Thanks for
one
being
and
here.
all.
Thank you, Dalia. She says, connecting to Mother Gaia, beautiful was to ground your energy and plant seeds of intentions.
Yes, that's the exact thing that we're gonna do this new moon. Like, I look forward to it, and everyone will have to let me know how they experience it, because it's going to be really, really wonderful.
Definitely. May is totally a time, you guys, to have patience in all things and to count everything as joy.
Mm.
It's a time to let new things grow within you. So gardening is of course, an amazing activity to do during this Taurus energy, because it gets you into that mode of cultivation and of patiently tending to your plants. But in the same way, tend to the qualities that are within you and let them grow by simply not treading on them, and don't fall into the ego traps of assuming like, oh, I'll never be able to do this, and so you just tread all over the seed because you just say it'll never grow. So don't say never, don't say can't. Let it grow inside of you with patience and with humility and with gratefulness for your weakness. And that's the best way to let these little weak seeds inside of you sprout up and become little seedlings. And then you'll continue. You'll just want to see them grow. So you'll be gentle with yourself. It's totally just this earthy time for being gentle and soft with yourself and letting these new things sprout up within you. And the key word being letting. Allow it to happen. You can't force a seed to sprout. You can't force a flower to open. And you cannot force yourself to change in the same way. It's a spiritual reality we live in. So let the spirit work on yourself and just let it do its work on you. And that'll be amazing. Oh yeah, we got some even more amazing content here for you. Some new moon in Taurus questions. Delia says, looking forward to May 13th. Jupiter in Pisces should bring healing energy as well, a cleansing. That's right. We will definitely get into that. I'm very excited for Jupiter in Pisces.
Watering the garden.
Definitely. That's going to be the expansion of the soul that humanity is needing at this time. Jupiter in Pisces is well timed. I think it's going to be amazing and help us change this course that the world is currently going into. However, Pisces does rule delusions, and we've been in the age of Pisces, which has been an age of deception, where religious masters and heads of religious organizations have kept control of the herd of humanity. And Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, is going to be the next 2,000 years of humanity taking their power back and realizing we don't need a medium between us and God, that we can access God ourselves. So Jupiter and Pisces can be negative, but I think it's going to be positive because of it's going to line up with Neptune, which is going to be good before Neptune goes into Aries. And I think it's going to be positive with how it's going to line up with Pluto as well, but there will be some heaviness to it, and it'll be about expanding our emotions and stuff. So anyways, we'll get into that. The new moon in Taurus questions to ask. These are for potent self-inquiry. I invite you to ask these of yourself and journal the answers. And an amazing thing you can do while listening to this or watching this is do what is called free writing, which is where you just write without thinking. So as you hear me ask these questions, just kind of go along and write whatever your hand writes down without judging it, without thinking about it. It could be totally ridiculous. It could be totally irrelevant to the question. The key is to let anything go. So challenge yourself with that experiment. Just write down whatever is written through your hand, okay? So the first question is, what does possession mean to me? What does possession mean to me? What do non-attachment and attachment mean to me? And if you want, you could pause the video and write down, see what you write, and then hit play to the next question. What is worthiness or value to me? What do I most want to have, to own, to call mine in this life? Why do I want this? What feelings would I feel if I had it? What would I think of myself if I had this thing that I want? How would I speak and behave if I had it? After having what I want, what would I do next? Imagining that I have this now, can I experience the feelings of pleasure, joy, fulfillment, etc. in my body now? Can I embody the sense of worthiness of having what I want in this present moment? How deeply can I root myself in this vibration of being worthy and having what I want? And so Taurus in the second house in general has to do with possession, with owning, with ownership, and just with having, the experience of having. So the question, is what does it mean to you to have something? And what do you most want? And I want you to just play around in your imagination with the feelings and the thoughts and the behaviors that you have now by imagining that you have it now, and see the freedom that you have to have that actual happiness right now. It's so crazy. And we did this as kids. We played pretend and we had a blast. I was Superman when I was little. I was Superman because I felt it in my body. It just felt real. And so you could do that now. And as you do it, you become a magnet to that thing because like attracts like. So you're just bringing it here into your life that much faster by doing this exercise. And not just asking yourself these questions, but actually doing the exercise of embodying those emotions. And then also the result of this is you'll discover what it is you want in its essence. So you might want a car, but what is the essence of that car going to give you? Is it freedom? Is it mobility? So maybe what you really want is freedom and mobility and not the car. Or maybe the essence of the freedom and mobility is independence. Or maybe it's feeling like you can stand on your own 2 feet. So just get to the bottom layer. What is the essence of what you want and why? And the benefit of this is getting to know yourself. And as you know yourself, you know more clearly what you really want. And it's just going to come to you that much faster, you guys. So new moon is a space for clarity. And I hope that this helped you establish that clarity. Amazing. Anything else on this new moon, Amelia?
No, I think we can move to the next transit.
Beautiful. So May 21st through the 31st, this last section of May is called the Artist's Retreat. So fitting that, the 21st, we have the moon enter into Libra, the sign of the artist. I also say the sign of the acrobat.
Oh, wait, did we want to talk about did we do the other ones on the other slide
Wait a
after
sec.
the new moon? Because I think we wanted to talk about Jupiter in Pisces, right?
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, we got to backtrack.
Yeah, of course. So you were hitting some good points with that. So
Yeah, thank you. Whoopsies. Okay, so May 11th is the new moon. We're gonna have Mars square Chiron and sextile Uranus on that day of new moon. Interesting transits there. Overcoming, past blocks, and with the help of Uranus, kind of finding an ability to take innovative action to just, restart new programs in your mind and get rid of old ones. So that's pretty positive. And this does show that maybe an element of unpredictability is going to be called for in that day. So maybe trying something totally new, and taking action on it. On the 12th, the moon will then enter Gemini and leave Taurus. And we have Mercury trine Saturn while the sun sextiles Neptune. So that's really positive. Mercury in sextile to, let's bring everything back up to, I like when the sun and all that stuff is near the top of the chart. That's just me. Too far. Okay. So May 12th, Mercury trine Saturn, extremely positive in air signs. Mercury's in his element. However, he is slowing down, getting ready to retrograde on, I think, the 28th. But this day, May 12th, is the ability to create new convictions, to stabilize new ideas in your head. This is coming off of the new moon. So moon and Gemini at that point, this is just helping you crystallize in a very easy way these new convictions about your self-worth, your worthiness, how worthy you are to have what you want, all these things we've covered. And sun sextile Neptune, that's going to be super valuable in just instilling more fluidity, more imagination into your life. All things creative is called for at this time. Jupiter now entering Pisces on the 13th is the start of a new 1-year period. So Jupiter, stays in each sign for 1 year. Jupiter in Pisces is amazing. Jupiter actually rules Pisces. So Jupiter is in his element here in Pisces, which is why I think it'll be mainly positive. This is where your sympathies, your emotions can be expanded to encompass all of humanity, to find this new level of compassion for people who you would never think of having compassion for. And this can really bring us together in a powerful way. So Jupiter in Pisces is 1 year ahead of us of emotional and soulful expansion, growth on all those levels. Anything else you would add about what Jupiter in Pisces will entail?
For me, it's like this expanding sea of consciousness. So I don't know if you already mentioned something like that, because I had to like quickly jet over because someone was calling me and I had to be like, hey, sorry, I'm in a meeting. But so I got a little distracted, which is actually very fitting with this Pisces energy.
Yeah.
So like you said earlier, for me, this is this expanding sea of consciousness, right? And I feel like we've kind of been in this with Neptune a bit, in the sense of like getting confused with the shadow and trying to decipher what is truth is a lot of it as well. But I think we're finally going to be transcending a lot of these paradigms with Jupiter involved. It's going to hopefully feel more clear as to what truth is in a very, transcendent spiritual sense, rather than all of this like, pick and choose your conspiracy theory or pick your poison. Like there's just a lot of things going on right now in society that I think are so confusing, and that's how the darkness wants it, is to keep it confused. But I think this Jupiter in Pisces is like this expansion of the consciousness into the subconscious, and through it. So we're not just stuck in it, stuck in the nightmare zone, or stuck in the paradigm zone. We're going beyond. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me too. We're going to have Mercury in his home, Neptune in its home, and Jupiter in its home, and Saturn all in their homes. So it's a lot of dignified energy. It just seems like it's going to be really positive.
It feels like the planets are rallying for us. I love it.
Yeah, it totally does. Yeah, this is a strengthening of humanity's own connection to the divine without the mediumship, without a mediator acting as his self-imposed bridge between us and the divine. This is us being able to connect directly to it with each other. I think it's going to bring us together in an amazing way. I think it'll restore a lot of the intimacy that has been torn away from us, and this dehumanization of
Mm.
where you just walk around and you see this. You just see scared eyes.
Yes,
And
call it out, Kristen.
I'm just going to, I have to, I can't not, you know? And I've been shadow banned
Yes.
from Instagram because it doesn't go with their agenda, the things I'm saying. But I don't care. I'm ready to die. I could die right now and I'd be happy. You know, either live free or die. That's the way I think about it. And I'm sick of seeing half a face. Just, it's so dehumanizing. This is going to restore that intimacy back, bring social closeness back, and
Mm.
hopefully eliminate a lot of this trash that was produced through that huge conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn and Mercury and the Sun, all in Capricorn at the winter solstice of.
It's a detox
Yeah,
for
because
sure.
it was when Jupiter was in Capricorn, which is where Jupiter doesn't like to be. Jupiter's this jolly gift giver, and in Capricorn, Jupiter's like a soup line. Like
Whoa.
it's like, here's your gift, but I
You're just hitting all the nails on the
and that was
head.
bad. And other astrologers have amazing things to say about it, how it was the darkest moment in the astrology that we'll see probably for thousands of years, where there was a
Mm.
massive conjunction in Capricorn, and Jupiter in Capricorn was, I I have gifts for you, but it's just crumbs, and I have to just ration it out, and you got to. And so now Jupiter in Pisces is like, the gift bag is open, but it's open within you, and you have to receive the gifts within. It's going to be, the gifts are inside with this Jupiter in Pisces. It's not going to be outside so much. So definitely, it's a 1 year period to turn your attention inwards, to live from within, and see that that's where the gifts come from.
Mm.
And
That's beautiful.
yeah, that's my hope. I really hope that this restores the intimacy and the connection that we need from the spiritual basis, not this connection of, yeah, we're the same tribe, or we're the same skin color, or whatever that dumb stuff is. We have the same color blood, we have the same spirit, and we're all alive, which means that we're all brothers and sisters. Dalia says something interesting. I'm wondering if Jupiter in Pisces will shine a light on Neptune in Pisces with media.
Yes, she is
Fan-
so on to something there. That's exactly
Fantastic.
what I was referring to earlier.
Hmm. That is genius. That's spot on. Um, because Jupiter does make things very apparent. Jupiter's the brightest star in the sky. And we don't, Uranus was the one who was like, I'm going to be the one that they can't see with the naked eye. And then we have Neptune,
Oh.
Neptune right after that. So that's why Neptune rules these hidden things. It's hidden from our naked eye. Jupiter is going to bring it to light. I think Jupiter will expose a lot. Fantastic little addition to this talk, Dalia, because that's a really great point. I hope we see that. It's my one of my number one prayers right now. My number one prayer is, God, please help me see myself. But my second biggest one is, God, Yahweh, please allow humanity to see that the media is not their friend. Just please.
Mm.
Because once most of us wake up to that, we're going to turn the TV off and they won't have power anymore. All their power will go away. See, they get their power because they have your awareness, and your awareness is your God-given power. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
people, please, please, please modify and manage where you're giving your awareness, because don't give it to things that depress you. I have to really set up walls around myself now because it is depressing. I'll be honest. What's happening in the world is totally depressing, but there's always stuff in life to be depressed about. It's just about where you manage your focus. And if you become depressed, you're letting them win. So don't give them that.
Mm.
So, and Mercury and Venus and the North Node here in Gemini, this is conscious awareness. This is us being able to take ownership and manage the direction in which we're putting our awareness and where we're directing our conversations. So it's the time to do that, to begin to manage your awareness. So that's awesome. Okay. 14th, Jupiter comes into Pisces. On the 14th, Moon then comes into Cancer. We have the Sun then on the 17th, trine Pluto as the Moon enters Leo, and that's when the Venus will be conjunct the North Node. So,
Well, that's going to empower everything we just said. No, I mean
oh,
that's the whole soul of humanity, like moving towards the light, right? I
oh,
think that's man, Delia really hit that on the head because it's showing up in more ways than one.
definitely. That'll be incredible. So the 16th, May 16th, Sun and Pluto have a perfect trine in Earth signs, empowering more transformation, making it easy so that we can transform our lives to have more life, more vitality, and more power, more personal choice. So the middle of May, May 16th, 15th, 16th, and 17th are all incredible days for just basic empowerment, empowering the self. And then on the 17th, Venus, 16th and 17th, basically, Venus is conjunct the North Node. This is again highlighting and empowering the experiences that you can have by being involved in your community, doing community work. Amazing time to pick up trash, as Amelia said. Just go out in the community and make it cleaner. Also make your space cleaner. But Venus and the North Node coming together is realizing our unity and our shared purposes together by socializing, by having conversations, by being curious about how other people are thinking and feeling, and questioning them as to why they think and feel that way. It does no harm to ask a question, especially when it's asked in love. Like, how do you know is an amazing question, because a lot of people don't even analyze how they know something. It's like, how do you know? That's an interesting one to ask. And just asking these questions will bring up more conversation, and maybe you'll change some people's heads in productive and powerful ways in that way, just by asking them genuine questions, getting to know them. And so it's really positive for that.
That's so interesting because I feel like when I ask, "How do you know?" to my loved ones, they get kind of triggered by it. Like they feel very offended, I guess, by the probably because, like you said, they aren't reflecting on it, so they sort of feel a little attacked because it seems like a prying. But it's mostly just like get to the core of things and keep your mind expanding, and that freaks people out. So
Yeah, I don't know what gives people the right to think that I should just accept everything they say, you know?
mm,
Like, if I'm questioning you, it's not to challenge you, it's to challenge myself, to not just accept
mm,
whatever I hear. And if you're not okay with me asking how you know this, then you're not so secure in your own so-called knowledge, you know?
mhm.
So I would call out the anger in them. I would say, you got to go forgive your mama and your dad.
I love you with these truth bombs today. I feel like you're just mic dropping one after another. It's so good. Mm.
It's so funny though. In daily life, I'll really do that. If somebody starts getting angry, I'll be like, man, you need to go forgive your mom. And it just hits them in a good way. They can tell I have no anger towards them at all. It's all love. So things tend to go, you know, pretty smooth in life. But I'm just waiting for the moment when karma hits and I get, you know, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Okay. So Venus conjunct the North Node, amazing. Definitely time to socialize. New ideas are going to come as a result of socializing and just being curious with people. Um, Something to do about the purpose of humanity and where we're supposed to headed and be headed and where we're supposed to evolve will come up by doing that. Then May 19th, Moon enters Virgo. Oh, be sure to party, by the way, on the 17th and 18th with the Moon in Leo. always a time to celebrate. Then May 19th, Moon enters analytical Virgo. Venus will trine Saturn. Amazing aspect. Venus in trine to Saturn in the air elements is, well, I'd like to hear what you have to say about Venus trine Saturn in air elements, but to me, this seems like forming new bonds, bonds that are united in the realm of ideas, like we have common ideas or common goals, and kind of helping to solidify those bonds. How else would you look at Venus trine Saturn, and how can we use that energy at this time, May 19th?
Mm. Yeah, you put it in a really fabulous way. But I would also say that for me, it relates back to a bit of the daddy issues healing to me. But there's
Mm,
this sense of, I mean, in my mind, I see Venus as this like both the mother and the daughter kind of archetype, and then Saturn is, like I said earlier, this father archetype. So there's just something very tender here of an opportunity to maybe like let down some of the borders or the boundaries, and to maybe fortify others, to just like take stock basically and see what, which streams of which boundaries are valuable to you and which ones are more so limitations that need to be released, because that's this sort of balance that Saturn brings to the table there. So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Awesome. Well said. So let's see what else we have happening here. Sun enters Gemini on May 20th. So then we have the sun in Gemini. This is the start of Gemini season. The
More
sun in
air,
Gem.
more air.
Yes, right? More oxygen. Mars still leading the way ahead in Cancer, which is interesting. Bringing a lot of focus of the action to making us rooted and grounded and creating a, I guess defending the family and realizing what's at the core of society or the basis or the foundation. And anybody who knows anything about astrology, about the opposition of Cancer and Capricorn, knows that in life, the basis of society is the home, is the family. The stronger the family, the stronger the society. That's just the way it is. That's why we need to be wary of other countries who do things a little differently, a little more, you could say, dictatorial, where the emphasis is on Capricorn, on restriction, on people at the top get all the goodies and those at the bottom have to work and get the crumbs. This is why I love America so much. Its birthday, the sun with the sun in Cancer, it's ascendant of Sagittarius, sign of freedom. Just all these things that really reflect what America is about or supposed to be about individual freedom. And from that individual freedom comes this amazing freedom of the society to have creative expression and all these other good things. So Mars is, we got to point out Mars here. Mars continues on in Cancer throughout the entire month of May, which is amazing, which is helping to rally our strength around what truly matters in life. Also, this can be really powerful energy at separating bondage, like bonds that are kind of bondaging, making up words. Yes, made up another word. Yes.
It
Bonds
works.
that are limiting, like, so maybe family ties that are not getting along so well. Mars in Cancer can be that push to allow you to say, you know what, this connection needs to end. I love you, and that's why it's ending. So bye. So this is kind of Mars in Cancer is like the warrior for your emotions. It's the thing that can honor how you're really feeling. So that's why I say, guys, honoring your parents means just not hating them. It doesn't mean you have to hang around them. It doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with them if that's not right for you. It just means don't resent them, which is to see that they can't help it. If they could help it, they would do better. They cannot help it. So don't hold it against them so that you can be free. And so Mars and Cancer is helping our emotions to find freedom in that way, which is really good with all this air energy. But it's something to remember that Mars is leading the way in water, a water sign. So there's still this emotional focus. But now with the sun in Gemini, May 20th, we have amazing air, Mercury, Venus, and the Sun all in Gemini. And this is the season now, May 20th, the season to commune, to have conversations, to explore, and to just to realize how we create our lives with our speech. How now the focus is kind of on how you use your words and finding out. So now we set the foundation for self-worth in Taurus, right? So now in Gemini, it's the time to give words to that. So start speaking forth from this place of worthiness. Try and focus on the language you use now to encourage that value that you have. So remember, don't say I can't, don't say never. Speak about what's possible, about what is happening, about what's growing in your life, about what is working. And if it's not there yet, about how it's getting there, you know? Always try and frame things positively at this time in Gemini with all the focus on, the mentality and the language. So for this last section of May, the artist retreat, May 21st, the sun immediately comes into a tough square with Jupiter, the day it moves into Gemini, really. So I had that for the 21st, but it looks like that's on the 20th, really, mainly. So right as the sun enters Gemini, immediately it's brought into confrontation with Jupiter, which is that emotional expansion now. So this is kind of what is the integration between you're feeling these big emotions, but what are you learning? Yeah. What's your perspective around it? Anything to say on this, Amelia? These aspects?
I mean, yeah, just what you said, like I pointed to the heart and the head. And that's partially why I called this the artist retreat, is because it starts off with this sort of almost like a writer's block feel, like this need to retreat, to go within, and to find your inner artistry, and to maybe hone in on your craft as well, which is, I resonate with this whole horoscope so much. So I'm really excited for this whole season. But
Oh, yeah.
Jupiter's producing this challenge with our sun, and this life force energy of like, how are you going to further your life force? How are you going to expand it and play with it? And where do you need to rechannel the energy? And Moon entering Libra also coincides with that space of artistry and beauty and balance. So
Yes, absolutely. Because there might be a little confusion now with Mercury in square to Neptune, May 21st and 22nd. Kind of like
there's a lot of head and heart going on here, like head and heart, and then the conscious mind and the subconscious mind might seem to be at odds, but I think it's the challenge is presenting itself so that we can integrate those.
yes, definitely. Because it is pretty, there's some positive aspects with this, but there's definitely a time. It seems like there's an opportunity here in the last part of May, May 22nd, to maybe go on a retreat to find the answers from within. It might be kind of confusing on the outside. Even though we just kick off with all this Gemini energy, it might not be the time to just immediately, get involved with others. It might be the time to kind of retreat into your own practice or your own isolation, so you can find these answers within. Definitely a good
I
point.
mean, there are group retreats too, so that is something.
Yeah.
Or like couples retreats, even, because Libra is also that sort of romantic, relationship vibe. There's this essence of that being a possibility. I'll just throw that out there.
Absolutely. Very good point. Go into isolation with others for that common goal. That could be really powerful. Then we have Saturn turn retrograde on May 23rd.
Ooh, powerful.
Oh, yeah. As the moon enters Scorpio. So Saturn going retrograde, this could be looked at as Saturn's going offline. I know some astrologers term it like that. Saturn's no longer operating in the normal way. So what do you think we'll see here? Do you think we'll see maybe restrictions be lifted, or what do you think we'll see
I
with
sure
us?
hope so. Actually, that would align well with everything else we've been talking about, so it makes sense.
Right.
And given the timing of everything too, just like even practically, I think that might be a possibility. Or it's what I thought of when you said offline is underground as well. So Saturn is sort of doing this underground work. So I'm wondering if that even, especially in Aquarius, pertains to that unearthing of some darkness, right? Unearthing, but we've already been unearthing the darkness. So now it's like, I don't know, I feel like Saturn might be like going into the thick of it or something. I'm having trouble explaining this, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it will facilitate some healing, like work with this healing energy even more. Saturn will come into sextile with Chiron, I believe, during this retrograde.
Oh yeah, that's deep then.
Yeah, pretty deep. And it's also it's still kind of in harmony with the nodes, trine to the north node, sextile the south node. So there's some work being done here. And once Saturn goes retrograde on the 23rd, I would recommend you look under the hood of your mind and find out what inner work you can do on there. Um, Saturn in Aquarius is your convictions, it's your solidified ideas that have become structured, that have become like behaviors and ideologies and things you don't want to let go of in the mind. With Saturn retrograde, it's an opportunity to let go of some things or rework some things, or just to see what your biases are, that were holding you back from maybe new information.
Mm.
So yeah, that's pretty positive. We have the moon in Scorpio during that time, the 23rd, 24th, a good opportunity to get deep emotionally, to make deeper discoveries within yourself. May 25th, then the moon is in Sag, which then leads to the full moon on the 26th. So let's look at the chart of this full moon. Here we have the moon. Boom. Let's go another day back. And let's get to the exact time of the full moon. Full moon is exact Pacific time for those of us on the West Coast, California time. That's at 3:52 a.m. So very, very early in the morning. Let's see what aspects we see to this full moon. The full moon is in close aspect to the south node, while the sun is very close to the north node. I think that means that this is an eclipse, isn't it?
Yeah. And we didn't even put that there. That
I
is so funny.
know. Whoops. Yeah, it kind of snuck by us, but yeah, this is going to be an eclipse, a lunar eclipse. Pretty
That's
incredible.
perfect. That's so perfect, actually.
Yeah. So it's in close touch with the nodes. Any other aspects? Um, Still coming off that square to Jupiter. About to come into a trine with Saturn, but not quite there. Looks like that's it.
Yeah, this relates to everything we've been talking about because now I'm thinking about um if I can bring up a controversial topic.
Yeah.
I am thinking about how people are often mistrusting of um people's stories regarding vaccines and the problems that they've had. But it's not just vaccines, it's like everything. I think people have become so fixated on, like you said earlier, labels and like specific language regarding topics like, political correctness, that there's this resistance toward the natural human experience. And there's like a huge denial of human experience, but a huge acceptance and like unconditional acceptance, even of like just I guess mainstream media and just mainstream articles that are churned out that fit the mainstream narrative. And every time someone tries to question it, as we mentioned earlier, like people get triggered because it breaks down the foundation of what they think they know. And so this like Sagittarius, so this would be a lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like this huge kind of a conflict here between the wisdom that comes from just the natural human experience versus this scripted doctrine and dogma that is kind of being shuffled about here. So this is huger than I even thought when I first looked at this whole thing. And I don't know how I didn't catch this before, but I'm
Right.
glad that it's coming up because it really does coincide with all of this inner work and outer work that we've been talking about thus far. So
Yeah.
stay alert, people. And stay like aligned too, you know, with your spirit and with your human experience, because your human experience is very important and very valid. And I think we've spent too long, especially in recent years, just not paying attention to the human experience and just sort of brushing over it as, you get what do you get what I'm putting down?
Man, definitely. It's almost like
Okay.
there's this belief like that the human experience is somehow outdated, like no
Right.
longer relevant. It's
Yeah.
like it's the
Or
most
not trustworthy, not dependable or something. It's like, what?
yeah. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's literally insane, and there is this split in the psyche right now, which is totally tip it's exemplified in the phrase postmodern. Uh,
Mm.
like, how do you have something that's postmodern?
I've never understood that phrase. We learned that in like high school or college, and I was just like, what? Like, doesn't modern mean now? Like, we're now. Like, what are you talking about? It's
Exactly.
crazy.
The future doesn't exist. Nobody's ever been there. It's not a place you can go. And we talk about
Mhm.
it as though it's real, but it's not real. It really has no existence at all. And you're like, well, Christian, come on, you got to plan for tomorrow, blah, blah. Okay. But tomorrow's not promised. And you'll never get to this so-called place called tomorrow. You just won't. All you have is now. So how do we have
Mhm.
postmodern? And it's this idea that, and I'm sure I'm just not getting it. Like I'm sure it's my fault, but this whole postmodern idea of, I don't know, and I got to do some more Google searches into it and do more research before I talk about it. But basically, that kind of shows the split here, how we're split from the present, how we have this idea and believing in something that that isn't real, like the future. And I want to look into some postmodern philosophy. Like I'm just curious, what would happen if I Googled it right now, um, just to see real quick.
I
But
think you're definitely onto something with that, how that relates to the eclipse.
hmm yeah, because Sagittarius does kind of rule the future with the arrow pointing yonder. It kind of relates to this far off goal. Um, everybody gets to see what I've been searching now lately. That's crazy. Um,
Search history with Christian.
you'll see like
Speaking
weird
of like history and future.
post. Let's see here. Postmodern philosophy. Let's just see what comes up. Postmodernism, also spelled postmodernism, in Western philosophy, a late 20th century movement characterized by broad skepticism, subjectivism, or relativism, a general suspicion of reason, and an acute sensitivity to the role of ideology in asserting and maintaining political and economic power. So it's
Hmm.
basically a general and wide-ranging term which is applied to literature, art, philosophy, architecture, fiction, and culture and literary criticism, among others. Postmodernism is largely a reaction to the assumed certainty of scientific or objective efforts to explain reality. Okay, kind of vague, honestly.
I mean,
Um,
it's kind of what we've already been talking about. I mean, what you said earlier about like how do you know? I think that's actually a very postmodern question if I'm interpreting this correctly. It's been a while since I've read anything about it, but
yeah,
I think postmodern philosophy is the sort of compensation for modern philosophy, which was like when science and like the technological advancement became more of the focus and the material. So postmodern is like, I guess, trying to compensate for that, but perhaps overcompensation is happening now. But you're
right.
right, it is very vague. Google isn't usually very helpful in my opinion for like lately when I do research, I'm like, this is just not this is just not helpful at all.
Right.
Not to slander Google, but like we might as well throw that in the pot.
Yeah. So it doesn't recognize basically any absolute value or certain belief. It emphasizes pluralism and relativism and considers human identity to be a social construct. Um, and this is tells me a lot here. There are postmodern religion considers that there are no universal religious truths or laws. Rather, reality is shaped by social, historical, and cultural contexts. So I just
Hmm.
don't agree with that. That's just a basic thing I disagree with. I don't see how. I mean, I see how they could think that, but reality isn't shaped by social stuff. Like we were talking about the human experience. There's the real experience that we have in life where there's a father and a mother, and due to their union, it creates a child. That's the Holy Trinity, which is a part of this universal truth in the Trinity, that three is a creative number. So that's not created, that's not a social construct. That's actually reality. We experience that. So I don't know.
I think it relates to what we were saying earlier about how, and I think you might have said this, but you're like, it's not the ego creating, it's the spirit creating through the ego. So
Right.
that's the, again, that humbling and that empowerment at the same time of this, that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, the psyche of humanity is split and it's not whole anymore. And
But this is a good opportunity to integrate and to come back to wholeness. But like, it's gonna be like a, you know, lunar
right.
eclipses often are very not catastrophic, but maybe catalytic in the sense that there's this catalyst happening, this
Definitely.
opportunity, especially if you're aware of it.
Yeah. And I think this catalyst like facilitates entering into a new realm. Like I kind of see eclipses as portal moments. So
Yes.
so this north node has been here in Gemini and now the sun is here with it and the moon is opposite. So the sun and moon are now joining the nodes, which creates this portal because all energies that come into the earth come through the moon first, being our closest satellite. So this is making a portal to a new dimension on earth. And I think it's going to look like, are we being um, manipulated emotionally with the moon close to the south node to feel a certain way? And and why would somebody want to manipulate you emotionally? Like just ask, like, why? Like what would somebody else benefit? How would they benefit by me feeling this way? It's just a question. And then you're tapping into the Gemini energy, the sun in Gemini, which is this questioning aspect, which is curious. And so this full moon is powerful to have perspective around the emotions coming into your body. Question, where did these emotions come from? What's the basis of these emotions? And who is benefiting by me feeling this way? And also by everybody else feeling this way too. So with the moon with the south node, I would recommend people be wary of how they feel. Keep that Gemini logic with you and maintain the curiosity even about the emotions you're feeling, which is crazy, I know, because when you're feeling the emotion, it feels so intense and it feels like it's you feeling it. But I want you guys to know that you don't need to become your emotions. If you're aware of your emotion, that's the proof that you're not the emotion. So try and be a little detached in that kind of healthy way on this, lunar eclipse. I think that's going to be really important because we have all these players here on Gemini. These guys are rooting us on, and the love is in the curiosity. The information is in being curious. And here we have the moon all by itself with the south node in square to Jupiter. This is a challenge, and it's an emotional challenge on this full moon. Delia says, amazing information. And as a collective, a lot of shadow work needs to be done during these retrogrades and with the eclipse starting a new chapter. That's correct. I see these eclipses as starts of a new chapter and also a portal through which we can enter. So don't believe whatever you hear. Sagittarius is about belief, and these beliefs are probably being powered through the emotional experience we're having. And emotions, an emotional person is easily manipulative. I'm just going to say that. That's just how it is, especially angry people. And this one university literally did this They did a study that proved that people who have anger are more susceptible to misinformation. This study literally proved that. So anger is an emotion. It's one of the strongest emotions. And if you have that emotion, you're easily led astray. This university proved that. So I'm not making this up. It's the truth. And let's begin to wrap this up here, shall we? Let's get into this full moon in Sagittarius message. I believe that this full moon can bring you in touch with a mental expansion that lights your way and allows you to see beyond the petty, the trivial, and the mundane. And I'm also going to say beyond the commonplace or the common belief. Ask to see and you'll be shown. Have faith and you will soar beyond your limits and also beyond the limits of others' comprehension. Just because they can't comprehend it doesn't mean you can't. Doesn't mean you don't have the freedom to comprehend. Use this energy to deepen your intuition, to not just understand, but to serve and live out the purpose of your life, even when the mind is not satisfied. That's my new moon message. What else would you say about full moon in Sagittarius? Do you want to read this?
Yeah. So I still feel so silly that we entirely missed this lunar eclipse, but it actually makes a lot of sense for what we were talking about too, because it's like it slipped by our consciousness, and this lunar eclipse is all about sort of like unearthing the consciousness. To me, it feels a little bit like volcanic, so that's kind of the vibe that I was getting here, with the little background that I chose. Freeing the mind, which in this case, so I use mind to mean sort of the same thing as the soul, in the sense that the mind is that driver's seat placement that we were talking about earlier, the higher mind, the mind that is aligned with God. And relating that, we are all thoughts in the mind of God. This is a very hermetic concept of like, God, divine consciousness permeates all things. And so we, as parts of creation, are also co-creators. We are also, just thoughts in the mind of God. And so we're having all this experience, and that's why, validating human experience is important, but not being overly attached to it, recognizing that there is wisdom in everything, but you don't have to hold on to everything and have this sort of over possession. So there's this freeing, this like shedding, this release that's happening, I feel, in this lunar eclipse energy. And I said wiggle into the wisdom because I just, you got to move your body. And that relates back to, earlier in the month, the new moon in Taurus. We still, with fire energy, movement is so important. Maybe even like some breath work to get your blood pumping, like creating the fire and noticing the fire within you naturally and really cultivating that, I think, is massively important. And since the sun in Gemini, that's where breath work, that's air and fire working together, the heat of your blood and the power of your lungs, just that type of thing. Wiggling into the wisdom, that's what I meant by that. And therefore, the wisdom comes from within. It comes from those movements that you create that are natural, that are part of the whole ebb and flow. And to coincide with that, no one who wanders is lost. It's like that, classic phrase, not all who wander are lost, but I don't think anyone who wanders is lost, even if they think they are. But it really, what I've noticed is that even if you get lost, you can always find your way back. And that's a very, I guess, biblical, would you say, point, because, once you become aware of the fact that you're lost, then it's just about shifting your perspective to finding your way back. And what does it even mean to be lost too? Because sometimes I find that I have the best discoveries or the best epiphanies when I think I'm lost or when I'm not on the path that I usually walk on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the wrong one. But at the same time, if you want to get back to where you were, you can, because all paths connect. They're all part of this web. These branches, these roots are all connected. So I just really wanted to like hit home on that regard, because I feel like that was just an intuitive message that came up when I was meditating on this full moon, this lunar eclipse. And yeah, treasure in unexpected places, which is like what I just said, of sometimes when you got to get lost to find yourself in the truest way. So wander all over, like it's a little hippie energy, the Sagittarius energy. And so in that way I wanted to bring back a little more lightheartedness to it, because I know these are some heavy, it's a heavy, lunar eclipse energy, and there's some heavy work going on both under the surface and in the light. So, try to stay lighthearted about it, and don't beat yourself up if you do get lost during it, because you will be able to find your way back with faith and trust and wisdom.
Right. Definitely. Amen. An interesting thing
Mm.
that popped in my head is how, like, when a sheep gets lost from its flock and the shepherd has to go and find it, when the shepherd is carrying the sheep back to the flock, is that the right word? Flock of sheep?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Something in my
Yeah.
head. I should have doubted that thought, but I just had a thought that was like, no, flock is for birds. And I was like, oh man. Um, an interesting thing, when the shepherd carries the sheep back, the sheep is screaming like it's being kidnapped. It's like, no, no, no. And little does the sheep know, the shepherd is helping it come back home. And so that's kind of an analogy to
Mm.
draw, like when your soul is lost and God is taking you back, you're probably going to be taken back screaming. And so that's another aspect of just surrender to wandering, surrender to being so quote unquote lost. And then
Mm.
you also have to surrender to being found again too. So, just a
Yeah.
good thought. Um, awesome. Looks like that's about it. So May ends, we have the 27th.
It seems like 2 hours is our go-to.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that if you're okay with that.
I am. I am.
I looked at other forecasts on YouTube and some go like 3 hours, 3.5.
Wow. Well, it's a whole month too. And so, I mean, at some point when I'm more settled into my career shift and all the things that are happening in my life, like it would be cool for us to do like maybe weekly ones, sort of like maybe smaller segments. But also,
Mm-hmm.
feel free to let us know in the comments what you prefer, if you'd like these longer sessions or if you'd want them broken up or both. Because
Mm-hmm.
we also talked about we could do a whole talk just about our moon and the different, like, you know, sessions of the moon. So
Right.
states. I don't know why I said sessions. I guess because like rituals involved, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. I guess the last thing we'll say is May 31st, the last day of May, we have the sun and the North Node conjunct at 10 degrees in Gemini.
Mm.
So the month ends with a bang. It ends with this illumination as to, again, the purpose of humanity at this time, the direction in which we can evolve and grow. So the month ends with this illumination, this light shining in this area. And in Gemini, again, it's about curiosity and getting to know people and having conversations. So stay curious this month of May. Stay light on your feet and have a lot of fun, and include others when you can, even include others who would want to join you in retreating, or in being in isolation, or just finding answers within. Do that with others or with yourself when you feel called to, because there'll be a couple moments, as we said, this month where might be a time for a retreat. But ultimately, looks like a very positive month. Biggest thing is Jupiter coming into Pisces now. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. I want to thank you guys for joining us here live today. Thank you so much for your input, for talking in the chat, and for asking any questions. We didn't get any questions today, but if you have any questions, now would be your last chance. And if we don't get any questions in the chat, then we're going to hop off. We're going to say namaste. And we love you guys so very much. Thank you guys for everything.
Thank you, everyone, so much.
Awesome. Dalia says thank you. And Rose is amazing.
Aw.
Isn't she? Yeah, she's awesome. Thank you, Amelia. Thanks for everything.
Of
And
course, thank you. We're
yeah,
sending you so much hugs, so many cosmic hugs.
I'm receiving them and sending them right back to you. And I'll see you next month for our
Yeah.
report for June 2021. All right. Thank you guys. Peace be with you. Much love. Be blessed. And we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.